Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Graniterock's Product Knowledge Seminar on Quikrete. This is the last of our 8 installments of our Product Knowledge virtual seminar classes. For your information, I do want to state that we will be recording this event for future reference and playback. For those who don't know me, my name is Ernie. I am a sales associate here at Graniterock. I will be your MC and host for today. My job today as the MC is to help us navigate this meeting, make sure we are in the right place at the right time. If you have any questions during this presentation, please add them to the chat section in Teams. We will answer as many as possible when we have time. To make the most of everyone's time and to stay on schedule, we may have to limit the number of questions that will be answered live. If there are any lingering questions, we will attempt to get those answered to you along with a survey upon completion of today's session. For this PK seminar, we are asking everybody to please keep themselves muted and your cameras off. The chat is now open, so we encourage questions or comments throughout this meeting. Firstly, I'd like to thank all of you for attending today. Once again, today's PK seminar is on Quikrete products and troubleshooting any concrete problems. Our presenter for today is Dave Ford. A little bit of a background. Dave has been working with Quikrete for 25 years and has taught numerous classes during our Contract Expo days. Additionally, Dave has also taught concrete management programs at Chico State. From here on out, I will let Dave take over and start his side of the presentation. Thank you, guys. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, everybody, welcome. It's nice to be here with you all. Wish we were all in person again, but we'll get them next year. But I thank Graniterock very much for inviting me to do this for you guys, with you guys. I thank everybody who's attending. Hopefully I won't bore you to death. I'll try to make things interesting, try to throw a little lightheartedness in here along with the product knowledge that I'm going to supply you with to help your customers, help make the decisions easier, because there's a lot of different products that Quikrete offers. We're just going to be kind of hyper focused on a couple products that are going to cover most of what you would need to know. At the end, you'll see my business card, and I'm always available if you have any questions. Also in this chat, if you have any questions, please, I encourage it. The PowerPoints are something like I always did at Expo, so this is all new to me. We'll give it a good shot here and try the best I can, and we'll get things going and start up with the show. We get everything started here. Alrighty, I'll put on my glasses now so I can read. Concrete repair and renovation. Like I said, my name is Dave Ford. Honored to be here with you guys. As kind of an overview of what we're going to go over, the topics we're going to discuss. The reasons and the causes for concrete cracking and failures, common repair errors and pitfalls, things to help your customer avoid doing to make things worse. It's usually a bad situation when they come in looking to repair something. So we want to try to make it as easy as possible for you guys to point them in the right direction and to steer them away from the pitfalls and common errors that are occurred with those type of procedures. Things like surface prep, choosing the proper product for the application. Like I said, we have several products that could do a job. It's best to pick the one that's right for the application, that's right for the user. So that all comes down to asking the right questions to your customer and finding out what their need is and where their abilities are. There's some materials that are a little bit harder to use than others. Definitely not impossible though. The application procedures and conditions, kind of some things to look out for, things not to do, as well as things to do. Most of the time when we come across any failures of any type of thing, even a patching material, you can almost always narrow it down back to surface prep. You go to paint a house, the house paint's peeling off of it. You go put new paint, and it's the best paint you could buy. $50 a gallon, $70 a gallon. You put it over that bad substrate, and you're really going to have an expensive mess to clean up. So we want to make sure that they understand the procedures involved in getting everything good to go. And then after it's done, some things like surface renovations and things like that, we'll be going over discussing that as well. So like I said, the surface condition and preparation, it's a huge step. We're going to talk about cracking, spalling, chipping, the repair of those, the overlays that can go over the top of those, or just overlays to build up a substrate, and the different products to use and the procedures involved in that. Resurfacing, a couple different types of resurfacer, and then as well as waterproofing. And I know a lot of the branches, that's a pretty hot topic as far as things that need to be done in waterproofing and the weather conditions and whatnot. So we'll go over those. So we got some reasons for concrete cracks and failures. Aside from the 3.6 earthquake we had this morning centered in off the Calaveras Fault, there are other reasons why concrete cracks. Earthquakes is one of them. We live in California, unfortunately, that just happens. But that's more of a phenomenon. It's not like because of something went wrong. A lot of the issues can start with the bad substrate. Like the bad substrate issues, include improper design of the substrate, no drainage and proper drainage, and lack of rebar, lack of reinforcing wire, dobies, insufficient soil and rock compaction. And it's really important to address the site and the condition of the soil and the substrate underneath what's going to be on that concrete pad. You want that concrete pad to have a nice, even, stable, secure location to sit on. You want to make sure you use the proper base rock for it. You want to compact the soil. You want to take the vibrating tamping pad and you want to run that over there and compact the soil. Get rid of the loose soil and get it a solid substrate. You want to have a substrate that's usually a mixture of rock and different gradations of sand to where it allows for drainage and runoff, but doesn't get saturated and soaked and become weak and soft. So that's one of the contributing factors that could be lead to concrete failures and cracking and stuff like that. And proper mixing and water ratios. A lot of people think it's going to make it a lot easier on me if I make this concrete a little loose, a little wet, so it's easier for me to screed and finish, and I may not be the best finisher, so I can move this stuff around and it looks good and everything. But the problem is, anytime you add more water than is absolutely needed to a concrete mix or a patching mix, you're going to significantly weaken that mix. It's going to have a lot of shrinkage. It's going to segregate the different materials that are in there, not get proper bond. There's a lot of factors that could affect that, as well as not adding enough water. When concrete cures, or patching materials cure, there's a process called hydration. That hydration needs to happen, which is where the water evaporates and a chemical reaction occurs to turn those materials into that rock hard concrete. You need to have a good balance of that water to the mix ratio in order for that to achieve its goal. So that's one that we kind of see a lot of. People overwater it, or like if you want to take a look at the pictures that we have on this slide, you look at something like the upper right corner. That's obviously an older slab. Some chemical got on it. Something just completely washed that surface coat off of there. If that was a new slab and you saw something like that, you would say, oh, absolutely, it got away from them. Maybe it was too hot when they were pouring it. They didn't work fast enough. So they put some water on the top of it to bring some cream up so they can get a finish off of it. Well, what happens then is once the evaporation starts, the bleed water gets sucked down. It's leaving this, really thin layer of not very secure material on the top, and it chips away, and there's things called crazing and stuff like that. If you look at the picture right below it, yes.
Can I jump in a minute? Can we go back to water cement ratio, please? Can you talk a little bit about how to follow the instructions and give us some pointers on, I am guilty as most homeowners and do-it-yourselfers are, is that, it just finishes a whole lot easier. It's easier to work if I add more water. And I just don't, and not until I got into Graniterock did I understand the importance of the water cement ratio for the strength of the final product. So can you go back to it, reiterate that point again, and tell us where to find the proper amount of water.
It's really simple with Quikrete, and what we make sure to do, excuse me, is put every bit of it, all the information you need on either the pail, the bag, or on our website. If you go on our website at quikrete.com and you hit the drop down arrow, you'll see it says for the pros. It'll give product listing alphabetically. You go on that, hit the product you want. On that screen, it'll pop up with some bullet points on it. Scroll down to the bottom and there's something called a spec data sheet. That's your best friend, and that's your insurance policy, and that's your customer's best friend, because everybody might think they know what to do, but like I said, Keith and everybody, all of us are guilty of it. You may add too much water. It has all the mixing and ratios in there, anywhere from 3 to 3.5 quarts or whatever the ratio is that's for that product. That's the important thing. Most of the guys you see that have been doing this stuff a long time, they just know by the feel of it. And for probably 90% of your customers that walk in that branch, they're going to think it's too dry, and they're going to add more water to it because it doesn't seem like it's able to work. It's too stiff. It doesn't want to work. So what you want to encourage them is, once you start working that material, you'll see that bleed water come up. You'll see the mix getting softer and getting more pliable, more workable. It's a plastic consistency is what it's called. Plastic consistency is like it's pretty close to oatmeal cookies, oatmeal cookie dough, chocolate chip cookie dough at most. It has a stiff consistency to it. Yet once you start working the material, you'll find that when you're working it with the proper tools and you're working it like it should, it actually becomes more workable. Things that are going to affect that workability are the water content, and also the conditions outside of it. It's really hot, if you got hot water in it, if you got cold water in it. It's a very critical part of the process to make sure that you don't have these failures and come back and have to buy patching materials and resurfacing materials. It's a very important thing. So on each pail, on each bag, and on the spec data sheet, it should give the proper water content for that material. And if not, you've got my cell phone number and I'll let you know. That's a good thing about us and Granite. We've worked together like that for many, many, many years. I'm usually really available and always able to answer the phone and get you guys your questions answered, or talk to your customers in person. So that's important. I can't stress that enough. I've seen so many things. They're called plastic shrinkage cracks, where they overwatered the material and it evaporated too fast, and because there's a lot of different things that we'll get into, but you're right, Keith, and a lot of it comes back to how much water you added. Did you add too much, or you think, oh no, it needs a little more, so you went halfway through and you start adding more water to it on the end to get the finish right. You just created a 50-year mistake, because the concrete will be hard and it'll last 50 years, but you got to look at that ugly finish the rest of your life. So
yeah,
very important.
Good stuff. Thanks, Dave.
Oh, you bet. Thank you. I appreciate it. So those are the things. Like, if you look at that bottom slide on the right-hand side, that's obviously a substrate issue. You can see it's sinking in areas, it's raised in other areas. There's angles coming off of a looks like it could be a structure. I'm sorry, it's not a bigger picture. That's what you're going to see in a lot of places that didn't have the proper substrate, or they've allowed water to get through those. I think they're expansion joints. It looks kind of like somebody put a puzzle together, but the water got down in there and could have washed the substrate out. There could just be a creek flowing underneath that thing of water draining from another location. So when you have areas like that, you got to look at that. And one thing you can tell your customer, and you just be totally honest with them, it's like trying to, seal up open heart surgery with the Band-Aids. Sometimes you can't fix it, and you may not want to fix it because you go through a lot of work and a lot of money and a lot of time, and it just does it again because you haven't gotten to the root of the problem. You haven't gotten to the source of the problem. Is why did it do this? Why did it settle like this? Why does it continue to crack even though I put this amazing patching material that's 6,000 PSI over it? Why is it still cracking? Well, that's because the problem wasn't eliminated. You just put a Band-Aid on it. So it's important to make sure that your customers understand that going in as well. And then Hey Keith, did you want me to answer? I see you got some in the chat box. You want me to wait until the end, or should I answer them as we go?
We'll shoot them at you, Dave. You just
Perfect.
keep going. We'll jump in.
Okay, boss. Got it, man. Okay, so we should get rolling here. I don't want to bore you guys to death. So the finishing procedures is one thing I was talking about. You know, the guys, they're the most important people on that job site are your finishers. Some of the pitfalls that you can almost tell instantly that happened was either they finished with a steel trowel while it was still wet, and that's causing crazing and chipping and dusting, or they used a float when there's bleed water on there, a wood float, and just sucked all the moisture out of it, and now they got a lot of shrinkage cracks because it started to dry before it actually was done with the bleed water. It started to bleed down in, and that usually happens like maybe an hour after it's poured. You can always tell it's really obvious, these little, usually, you know, parallel running cracks in a slab. Vibration and heavy equipment, that's another thing too. If there's a piece of machinery on there that has a lot of vibration, it'll actually shake the concrete, and with the aggregate that's in there, cause it to crack. Maybe, you know, a great 7-sack mix of concrete, you know, really, you know, good, you know, 5,500 PSI concrete on a, you know, 6-inch slab, and you got a piece of equipment vibrating on it, and it's going to break it. Like if you look at all the telephone poles out there, the ones that are still standing, they use a product called non-shrink grout, and the non-shrink grout is made to be a fluid consistency and still 8,000 PSI, yet it has no aggregate in it. There's also no shrinkage because it's non-shrink, meaning if you have any bolts or anchors, it won't loosen up. So that's why you'll see them pour those for different things and pads for machinery that are high vibration machinery or even heavy machinery, because you get incredible strength without having to worry about the air pockets of the rock that's in there fracturing the concrete from that vibration. Shrinkage, that's a huge one. If you pour a 100-foot long piece of concrete, a slab of concrete, the average shrink rate is like 0.6 inches, like just over a half an inch, that concrete is naturally going to shrink. It shrinks due to the fact that there's the moisture loss, the binding of the materials, the hydration process. That's part of that process that needs to happen. There will be shrinkage. What we're trying to do with the right water ratio and with the right finishing techniques, and also with some things we'll talk about later with control joints and things like that, we want to control that shrink to work in our favor instead of being our worst nightmare. Tree roots. Look at the one bottom left-hand corner of that picture there. You can obviously tell a root just busted the side of that concrete out. Usually probably looks like it's on a curb. So that happens a lot. Trees are not friendly to concrete at times. The picture up above, just so you can see just the kind of different things. You've got everything in that one. That's like an all-in-one picture right there. You got the crazing, you got the chipping, you got the spalling, you got the cracks. So that's kind of the combo picture on that one. And then we'll go now to surface preparation. The most important part of any repair or any project you're going to do is the prep. Usually that takes the most time. You go to paint a car, which is something that I used to be able to do before they changed the laws, but it's all hundreds of hours of work getting it prepped for 15 minutes worth of applying paint. It's the same way with the concrete repairs. You want to make sure that substrate is as good as it can possibly be, free of wax, grease, dirt, paint, anything that's going to be detrimental to the bond of that material before you waste your time and mix it up and things like that. The surface conditions really important too. If, like on that past slide here, I'll kind of go back, you see that picture up at the top left-hand corner, all that debris that's sitting there, you can see like those little islands in there, blast them out, get them out of there. You're putting new material in there anyways. You don't want that stuff in there creating an air pocket and also a future crack, which is what's going to happen in that situation. You want to get all the loose material out of it. You want to get all the dirt, debris, any paint, anything like that. I saw somebody one time, they did a self-leveling floor in their basement and spent all this money and time, and that's not a cheap product. And I went down in there and it looked like somebody dropped a wrecking ball on it. It was absolutely terrible, and I felt so bad. And I went and picked a piece of it up, and out of force of habit, I just looked at the back of it. I thought, man, he didn't have any bonding adhesive on this thing. And I turned it over, and as I looked down, I see a yellow floor. He did not remove the paint. So he spent roughly almost $400 on material didn't read the spec data sheet and realized he had to strip the paint off the floor, and he wasted a lot of money, a lot of time, had to do it all over again. I felt terrible. But that's part of the surface condition, it's part of the cleaning, it's part of the prep that will ensure that these products will work good.
Hey, Dave.
So I put, yes.
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
We got a question. What is the best product to remove concrete curing compound? And I'm assuming you'd have to wait a little while before you did that.
Yeah, absolutely. If it was like, is it like a cure and seal?
Yeah, exactly. Cure and
okay.
seal.
Okay, so what you're going to want to do is obviously wait at least 28 days because concrete's going to cure for 28 at a minimum. So you wait 28 days, and honestly, the only way to get rid of that, you can try using the strippers that they have, the chemical strippers, to remove sealants. The best way to test after you've done that, if it works, is take and drop water on it, see if the water beads up. If the water beads up, it's still present. Because when you're using a curing agent versus like a sealer that you poured on the concrete, they have a tendency to go a lot deeper than if you put it on a pre-existing slab. So if you have a curing compound that you put on green concrete, the fresh concrete, you might actually have to grind a layer off. You might actually have to take and rent a floor grinder, and that's unfortunate because now your cream layer's gone off the top, and you're going to have to figure out some way to make sure right away you get some type of sealer on there or a resurfacer on there to protect that from further damage. And it's just going to be a white t-shirt in a pomegranate factory. It's going to be really stained really easy.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Thank you, appreciate that. So concrete repair materials have really come a long way. I remember doing one of the first expos. We were at the fairgrounds, and we were talking about the different products you use for different patching materials. And I put a picture of two things on the slide. One in the top is concrete bonding adhesive. The one on the bottom is concrete acrylic fortifier. What these are is these help in the aid of bonding the new concrete, the new patch, the new to the old substrate. The old concrete, the old stucco, whatever it may be. And they're two different type of products. And most importantly, you do not want to use these products together. Acrylic and this latex, they don't mix and they don't play well together. They crack. So you will have failure almost guaranteed. The one on the top is concrete bonding adhesive. And concrete bonding adhesive, when you first pour it out, you're going to notice it's like a thinner Elmer's glue. It's very thick. What this is a primer. This is something that you would actually take a roller, paint on the surface about the thickness of a coat of paint. And this is after the slab is clean and dry. You put this on there, and what this does is this dries, but then when water hits it, it remulsifies, gets real sticky, and creates a chemical bond that's actually stronger than the material, that chemical bond. It also seals off the pores underneath it from sucking that material dry. And you don't want to have that happen. If it sucks it dry, it's going to lead to failures. It's going to lead to cracking. The one below it is acrylic fortifier. The acrylic fortifier is an admix. That's like your steroids for concrete, steroids for possibly any patching materials or stuccos. It's going to create a bond. It's going to make it real dense and real sticky. But with the new products that we have out now, it's really important to read the spec data sheet, because there's only a couple products that you probably come across where you need to use this product, or unless you're doing an overlay. And a good rule of thumb is if it's 1 inch or less, use a fortifier. If it's 1 inch and over, or if you're pouring a bigger slab on top of an existing slab, use the bonding adhesive as a primer. You can let the bonding adhesive sit for up to 48 hours. Yeah, and as long as it's clean and dry, you can come back and go over the top of it. If you're etching, it's really important to neutralize. Dilution is the mother of all neutralization. So you need to take in baking soda water and actually make sure it's neutralized. I wouldn't recommend etching. I would more like you to use like a blasting. And once again, look at the repair product specifications to make sure that the product that you're using needs a bonding adhesive or a fortifier. A lot of them out there don't, and we'll talk about that in a second. One thing that's really important is know the limitations of the products and the advantages of the product, the performance of the product. Do you need something that's really 8,000 PSI on a 3,000 PSI slab? The easy use for your customer. You want to make sure that they're able to use it. Using a self-leveling floor resurfacer, can require a lot more knowledge, a lot more work, and has a lot more pitfalls and risk of failure than just a standard overlay of a sand topping mix. The knowledge of the product and the spec data sheet is your best friend. You can print those up right there, hand them to him when he's got the product. It's got everything they need on there from prep to finish. So first off was the kind of the workhorse that we've had forever, and you guys have sold buckets and buckets and pails and bags of this. It's called vinyl concrete patcher. It does not need bonding adhesive or fortifier. There's a powderized version of that in the mix. What this is used for is for repairs of cracks, grown up sidewalks that a tree root's grown it up, anything about a 1/2 inch, 10 square feet. This is not a resurfacing product. It's not available in white, even though the thing says it is. Back east it may be. But this product mixes up like a peanut butter consistency. You just need to make sure that the slab is wet, clean, and damp. And then when you apply this product, you can go down to a feather edge up to usually about a 1/2 inch in one lift, and it will not peel away that feather edge, and it will not have the effect of wanting to chip up and do things like that. And the PSI on it, it's like 5,000 PSI in 28 days. You can walk on it in a day, 3 days for wheel traffic, but stay within a 10 square foot area about a 1/2 inch thick. That's the limitations. We have other products that will work, which is the next one that we'll talk about, is the facet repair mortar. This one can get pretty close to a feather edge as well. I've done a feather edge and it's been fine, but the difference between using this and using the vinyl concrete patch, one, this is fast setting, so you need mix up no more than you can use in about 15 minutes or so. It can go vertical and overhead because there's no slump, but this also has a bonding agent in the mix. It has a powderized version of acrylic in the mix to help with bonding. So once again, you do not need to use bonding adhesive or fortifier with this. You just need to make sure the surface is clean and damp. The PSI on this one, is 6,000 PSI, so it's a little bit stronger. But it is fast setting, so you're not really going to want to use this as a resurfacing agent either. You're going to want to use it as a repair product. You can go up to 2 inches with this stuff without having to reinforce it. So that's really nice. If you've got a busted off piece of a concrete curb, you can recreate it and sculpt the edge. It won't slump, it won't sag. So between the vinyl and the facet repair mortar, that's pretty much cover almost 80% of the cracks and repairs that you're going to need. Now, one thing to keep in mind too is you're going to have usually the cracks and then they go into hairline cracks. You need to take a crack chaser or something, grind those cracks out on the hairline side, because you're putting a sanded material into a crack that's a hairline. You're not really going to get any material to fix the crack. The main reason why you do want to fix that crack is you want to make sure that there's no water getting down in there washing out that substrate, making that crack larger, getting it room to grow. That's the important part. I know we're ripping through it pretty quick. I hope you guys are okay. If you have any questions, please stop me because I'll just babble on. So here's this is another one that's kind of one of the do-it-yourselfer friendly products. It's a polyurethane crack seal. It's an amazingly strong patching material. The flexibility in it is incredible. It weathers well. It's a lot better than all the old style crack repairs and crack seals that we used to have. This one's got like a textured finish. It's tack free in 60 minutes. Just wait 2 hours before you paint over it. 3 days before traffic and 7 days for temporary water immersion. Don't get it on your skin though. It's awful hard to get off. I definitely recommend wearing some disposable gloves. But even though this will go down in a pretty thin crack, one thing you need to consider, and it's very important, if you're thinking about going over the top of it with a resurfacer or laying a bed of thin set to put some flagstone over the top of it, do not use a product that is not cementitious. This is polyurethane. The thin sets or the overlay or the resurfacer will not stick to this stuff. So if you're thinking about one day I might want to do that, make sure you use something with the cement base, something cementitious like the vinyl concrete patch or the facet repair mortar, so that way you can go over the top of it. If you are going over the top of it with the facet repair mortar, you can go over that in a day. The vinyl concrete patch, you need to wait about 7 days before we go over the top of it. So it's very important when your customers ask, and I'm just going to repair some hairline cracks. This is great, or the crack seal's there, but just make sure you kind of ask them, say, hey, is this something you're going to want to go over later with an overlay or something like that? just so they know in advance that they're going to have to dig it out and they're going to have to grind quite a bit of it out to get the residue off. Otherwise, it will not stick.
Hey, Dave,
Talking
on
about
that,
the overlays, yes.
can we still use a backer rod with that product?
Highly recommend one. Yeah, the big misconception is they think they're filling the crack. You don't need to fill the crack. You need to seal the crack. Give yourself about a 1/2 inch, because that's usually about what that product's for, is like a 1/2 inch wide, 1/4 inch deep. So you want to stuff the backer rod down in there on the more severe cracks, because you just need to seal them. You don't need to fill it, because a lot of times you can I've actually poured bags and bags of self-leveling down a crack thinking it would just fill real quick. Well, it had to fill a void underneath it that was washed out. So you don't need to fill the crack with this. You just need to seal it. So put a backer rod in there, give yourself about a 1/2 inch wide, 1/4 inch deep seal, and it'll be just fine.
Thank you.
You bet. With the overlays, there's a lot of different materials. Man, there's a lot of different materials. Sometimes it's easiest just to keep things simple, A, for your customer, B, for you, and the ease of use. This is one of them, and we've started selling it at Granite's many years back, and I know Robert and I did a couple jobs with this stuff as well. It's called sand topping mix. It's really simple. It's a good blend of sand and cement. It ends up being 5,000 PSI, and this is one of those products where you are going to want to use a fortifier or a bonding adhesive. You can see that's why I put the picture on that page of those two products as well. If you're doing an overlay, this is one you're going to have to float and you're going to have to finish it, but it's the most simple product, and it's one of those products that people think they need, the Billy Mays Chihuahua, that they have to get some amazing material that works like duct tape. You just sometimes need something very simple that has great result, that's a good product, and this is that. And it's not only that, it's probably, I don't know, 1/4 of the cost of a self-leveling floor resurfacer, and the prep for it is not as intense. The actual installation is not as intense. You will need to be able to finish it. You will need to float it, but you can go up to 2 inches thick in one lift. I've gone down to about a 1/4 inch with this, and it was just fine. Anything over 2 inches, you're going to want to use concrete anyways, so why bother with a patching material unless you're going 2 inch down, 2.5 inch down to something, and you can extend this with aggregate. You can just get the pea gravel, put some pea gravel in it, usually about 30 pounds for a 60-pound bag, and you're absolutely fine. It can be extended. Mix in the fortifier, it makes it even stronger. Put the bonding adhesive down on the thicker applications, and now you've got a chemical bond that's 5,000 PSI. Man, the slab might not even be 5,000 PSI. You're actually stronger than the slab. It's sometimes easier just to keep it simple. If you want to get tricky, I've got products for you that'll work for that. We'll definitely make it a super material that it's a little more tricky to use, but still with this, I highly recommend getting the spec data sheet in the customer's hands, or at least letting them know where they can find it on quikrete.com, so that way they do the proper curing and stuff like that. And an important thing to know is that if you do use an acrylic fortifier in a material, be it doing a stucco patch or whatever, a lot of times in most conditions you don't want to wet cure it, you don't want to moist cure it. Part of the magic of the acrylic fortifier is it needs the air to help it cure. So you're suffocating it by either covering it, or you're suffocating it by a moist cure, a damp cure. If it's really hot outside, that's a total different animal. You're going to want to mist it. And a lot of people don't realize how important it is. One of the pitfalls is don't do it when it's going to be 105 degrees. Don't do it when it's going to be 32 degrees at night. You want to read, that's on the spec data sheet as well. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself every opportunity to make sure this is successful and that the product works the way it should, and you're not fighting chemicals. You're not fighting just a natural occurrence in these materials. You want to make sure you have the ability to do that, and watch your conditions, watch your water temperature. Some of these faceting products, like that facet repair mortar, you put hot water in there that you got out of a hose, you're gonna be rolling a bunch of boulders around in a bucket. You won't even get it on the ground. It'll be set. So use colder water on hot days. It delays the set. There's little tricks you can do like that as well. So the sand topping mix, like I said, it's a fantastic overlay. If you need to build something up, they say, man, I need to go from like 1/4 inch to 1.5 inches. Here you go. It's a very simple way, very inexpensive way the prep work isn't as intense either as like a self-leveling floor resurfacer. So what we heard for years was, yeah, I fixed all the cracks in my driveway. I fixed all the cracks in my patio. I've done all the work I need to do to make sure it's secure and it's good to go. Now it looks like a spider web. There's all these different color materials because it's awful hard to match the existing concrete color with a patching material or with even concrete. So what we created was, it's called Recap Concrete Resurfacer. Back in the day, we used to have it was called the Blue Bag Resurfacer. When we say resurfacer, this is not a self-leveling floor resurfacer. This is a material that goes in like a slurry coat overlay, and you apply it with a squeegee. Very easy to use once you've used it. Once again, the surface prep is key. At least a 2,500 PSI pressure washer. That way it knocks the glaze off the concrete, gives it a little tooth, something to bite. Make sure all the grease is removed, oil, paint, dirt, any debris, any cracks. You need to repair the cracks first or they will telegraph through this. I'd recommend using the vinyl concrete patch, waiting 7 days, or the facet repair mortar and wait at least 24 hours. It's incredible. Once you get the slab prepped, usually use like duct tape. I put duct tape in the joints, the control joints, and then come back after it's done and paint this stuff with the paintbrush in the control joints, because by filling the control joints, you're actually it's just gonna lead to cracking. One thing about control joints too is I forgot to mention, you all know, is kind of stay within about 10 square foot area. So you don't want to fill the control joints of this because their job is, it's like breaking glass. You want to give the concrete a place to crack, and you score it, that's where it cracks. So by filling those up, you're just asking it to crack. The recap goes on almost like a paint, but you want to put it on with a squeegee, you get a nice even coat, usually about 20-25 minutes working time. Mix it up in a bucket with a paddle mixer and a 1/2-inch drill. Don't whip it fast, just mix it thoroughly and then let it sit for about a minute or two so all the little air bubbles come up. Pour it on there, squeegee it on. By the time you're usually done squeegeeing it, because usually it does about like a 65 square foot, basically just a control joint area, you'll want to hit it with a broom and give it a broom finish, and all that stuff is gone. It's like you never saw the Bondo underneath the car after the car wreck. All you see is this beautiful paint job. And talk about increasing real estate value. Your concrete that's 50 years old looks brand new. It really is that easy. It ends up being like 40 cents a square foot to do this work. It's a fantastic product, and I was so happy when we came out with this because so many people were so concerned with the appearance of the concrete. Well, with the resurfacer, you can even trowel it on if you'd like. The reason why we say do the broom finish, two things: to get the texture right and also to get the squeegee marks out of it. You can walk on it in 8 hours, drive on it in 24 hours. It's a fantastic product. It does make old concrete look good. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on. I know we're getting a little short on time, so what this product is, it's called surface bonding cement. It's a fibered cementitious material. You want to mix like 50% water, 50% fortifier in with it, and you can actually dry stack a wall block, coat it on both sides with this product, and it's stronger than a mortared wall. In California, because of earthquakes and things like that and building codes, you can only go 4 foot high. So that would be perfect for like a retaining wall around a garden or around a containment around a yard. Also, though, with the way that this material is designed, it actually is a waterproofing type of material that you could take and put over an existing block wall with the mortar joints. Make sure that the substrate's clean. Block has a tendency to really absorb water, so make sure it's misted and sprayed and damp as you're applying this material. Usually ends up going on about 1/8 inch lifts to 1/4 inch lifts. It's an amazing product. It's fibered. The fibers lay down. You don't have to shave the wall after you're done putting it on there. So it's fantastic product for beautifying a wall, building a very strong retaining wall, as well as waterproofing an existing wall. And then the other one is the heavy duty masonry coating. Same type of thing. You've got a pond, you've got a fountain, you've got a basement wall that's leaching, that has a lot of moisture coming through it. This is a cementitious material. Also, you're going to want to put half water, half fortifier mixture to mix this stuff up. It mixes up like cream of wheat, like a soft grits or something like that. and you mist the wall, make sure it's clean, make sure it's damp. You apply this on there. Usually ends up being like 2/16 of an inch coats, 1/16, 2/16. And it actually waterproofs the pond, waterproofs the wall, waterproofs the fountain, the basement wall, gets rid of the leaching and the dampness in basements and things like that. It's super simple to use. There's a lot of other products out there, but like I said, do yourself and do your customers a favor. Give them a material that they can use successfully with minimal effort, and their costs are down considerably over some of the other stuff, but the performance is phenomenal. Another thing that we're kind of get into a little bit, and that I see a huge market for, is the concrete countertops. We've got an amazing concrete countertop formula. What makes it so good is the plasticizers that are in it. Like we were talking about earlier, Keith, with you have people wanting to overwater a material. This was one of them, because we for years had Cheng Designs and everybody else was using our Quikrete 5000. Problem being is these people, the people that were doing them really didn't understand workability and materials and the science behind it, and they would overwater it and end up with a lot of cracking. With this mix, you put a plasticizer in there that flows and works really good without having to have that excess water, and the workability is superior. The finish is amazing. I've watched some finished concrete countertops. They look like a bowling ball. They were so smooth, and one was a black one that just, it was like a mirror. It was incredible. You know, it's a 6,000 PSI mix. We have it in a white, which is called tint based, and the countertop mix standard, which is gray. And that all depends on what colors you want to add to it. I see a lot of this stuff going on, even park benches in parks. There's a lot of a market for this that I think Graniterock could really capitalize on. And we do have it in stock. You don't have to buy full pallets. But there's a couple more products I'd love to talk about. But I know that we're running short.
You're doing great. This looks really interesting to me. Robert, you tried this?
Yeah, I haven't tried this product. We used to use the Quikrete 5000, but I'm really excited to try this.
Yeah, it was back in the days when actually Cheng Design was at an expo, and he was in his book said use 5000, and it worked fantastic. With this though, not only are you getting the workability, but I got to tell you, you know, you're looking at a cost like, I think it's like 10, 11 bucks a bag, as compared to Rhodes, which is $70 a bag. The savings are enormous. If they're just doing a colored concrete countertop, a gray, a black, whatever, you add your integral color, you go to work, and the performance is fantastic, but the cost saving is unbelievable. And with the workability, you don't have to vibrate it as much. And that was another thing people were having problems with. They vibrated so much, it brings so much of that bleed water up to the top. It was leaving crazing little chips and spalls and a dusty finish when they started finishing it with the tools. But I've watched them. It's like a 7-stage process that they use to polish these countertops with, and they turn out amazing. So it is something that just in case you guys, I just saw a big opportunity for you guys with this type of product. So there's
very cool. Good. So Dave, go ahead. Tell us about. We got a little more time, and we don't have any questions right now. You guys are welcome to throw in questions into the chat. Again, we're with Dave Ford. Obviously an expert in concrete and Quikrete materials. And so if you got a question, go ahead and throw it in there. But Dave, if you want to talk about some more new products or something other interesting products, please go ahead, and then and we'll see if we get any more questions.
Sure. I mean, that'd be great. I was going to put a couple more slides in to be safe, but I know how I get, and I didn't think I'd have enough time. So if you go on our website, and also I'll bring in some catalogs to the branches so everybody has the new current catalogs. There's a product, it's called QMax Pro, and it's a concrete mix. You can walk on it in an hour. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's got an hour's working time. You can walk on it in 3 hours, and it's 6,500 PSI, but it's not a fast setting concrete. You're talking about a high early strength walk on time of 3 hours, but you still have an hour workability, and you reach 6,500 PSI. It's an air entrained cement that is in that along with fibers, and that high early strength is incredible considering that you're able to walk on it in 3 hours, and at 28 days you're at 6,500 PSI, and it's called QMax Pro, 80-pound bags. It's going to be one of those things, kind of like the 5000. You're going to have a little niche market where it's not going to be sold, outselling our regular 4,000 PSI concrete mix, which that's what that is. It's a 5-sack mix, just our regular concrete. But if somebody needs to pour a handicap access ramp, if somebody needs to do some patchwork and material in a yard and wants to be able to get on it quick, you get inspected and they're like, hey, you got to have, a safer access for this and that. This is a product that will work fantastic for that. Or for people like me that don't finish concrete every day, this one gives you a little bit more working time, but it's also with the way the mix design is, it finishes super easy, which for me is huge because I don't finish concrete every day. I can tell you how to do it, but I can't do it. Not like these guys here. So it's a great product called QMax Pro. Look it up when you're talking about it. Then we've got a product that we just came out with called Foreman Pour, and it's a pumpable concrete mix in a bag. It's usually an 80-pound bag, and it's the same type, almost exactly like the QMax Pro, but it's pumpable, and you can actually pour forms and with that concrete, the Foreman Pour. And just so everybody knows, I mean, I'll give you some good cheat little techniques because they're always talking about yields and how many bags do I need for whatever. Here's a cheating technique that made me look smart for years until I tell too many people. But if you have an 80-pound bag of sand topping mix, let's say, and they ask, well, how many bags do I need to cover? Usually if you take half the weight of the bag, so on an 80-pound bag, that would be 40, correct? 40 square feet, and then it's always at a 1/4 inch. I have a 50-pound bag, 25 square feet at a 1/4 inch. I have a 60-pound bag, 30 square feet at a 1/4 inch, and it'll get you very, very close. This is non-aggregated material, even mason mix and mortars and stuff like that. So that way you can right away know exactly where you're at a 1/4 inch thick. If it's 1 inch thick, just divide it by 4. And that's a good little way to cheat and save you some guesswork, save your customers from loading extra bags, and save the granite yard guys from loading bags because they got to do that all day. So that's a cool little thing to put in your back pocket and have as a little cheat sheet. And of course, I'll come in and bring you guys some calendars.
Great tip. So Robert, you got a question?
Yeah. Hey, Dave, can we step back to the heavy duty masonry coating real quick?
Sure.
A couple of questions on that. One is like if you had a failed, say you're in a basement area, you had a failed retaining or a French drain, and you had a lot of hydrostatic pressure against that wall. Plus, you started seeing a lot of efflorescence. What would be the best thing to manage that prior to applying the heavy-duty masonry coating?
So yeah, that's a great question. The hydrostatic water pressure, this does hold it back, but it's only going to hold so much back. When we were talking about getting to the root of the problem, the substrate, it's always best if you can coat both sides. I understand a lot of it's sub-grade and you can't get to the other side to coat it. In a perfect world, you would want to coat both sides and it traps it in. If it's just leaching out little soluble salts, a little efflorescence here and there, it's not enough static water or hydrostatic pressure to pop this stuff off. It's not going to cause any type of failure like that. In fact, I'm looking to see on the sheet with the hydrostatic water pressure. It's usually the compressive strength, then it's 5,000 psi, flexural strength's 1,000 psi. I'm trying to see if there is a rating, and I'm sure we have it on our website of the amount of hydrostatic water pressure it'll withstand. But if it's just leaching, if it's like bringing in the efflorescence and kind of damp, absolutely, you can get away with just doing it on one side for sure. But if there's active, kind of water puddling up underneath it, you're going to need to get to the root of the problem and stop the water from getting there in the first place.
Thanks. And then just to jump, sorry to dominate this, but just to jump back over to the concrete overlays, can we use an acid stain or a water-based stain over the top of the overlays?
Okay, with the sand topping mix?
That's correct. Or the micro topping. I don't know if you had mentioned that or not.
Okay. Yeah, with the, let me see, I'll get back to it. With the sand topping mix, this guy right here, absolutely, you can stamp it, stain it, color it. You can use acid stains on it, no problem. It's just like concrete, really, if you think about it. It has all the properties of regular concrete. So with the recap, no. because there are so many polymers in there and there's so many admixes in that material to get it to go slurry coat and still remain about 6,000 PSI, and to have all the characteristics it does to bond and to wear resistance. If you put an acid stain on top of it, it'll just shatter it because it can't penetrate it to do what it's supposed to do. I would recommend putting an integral color in there. I recommend, we've got Quikrete color, but to be honest with you, I like Davis color better. I like the powdered color better in this application than our liquid color. Not a very good salesman, I guess, for Quikrete, but I'm being honest. I've seen better results using the powder color, the oxides, and just mix it in with the product. So you're mixing in a colored resurfacer. But no, you cannot use the acids on this one, and it'll just break it apart and it'll flood up. It won't penetrate.
Thank you.
Sure.
So any other cool new things emerging? What kind of trends do you see out in the marketplace there, Dave?
Trends I see right now, I sure see a lot of everything. It's unbelievably busy. Things I do see trending is we have like our spec mix program, and Daniel, we presented to Daniel a little while back. The things I do see a lot of are the veneer stone mortars, the poly modified veneer stone mortars. We have a great one with spec mix, setting bed mortars. That's another one that's really getting popular. Things like that. We have an XP 5000, which is like a thin brick type of it just seems like there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of the veneer, a lot of polymod veneer, things like that. The recap it was really funny. You saw these resurfacing projects, and us or Ardex, it doesn't matter, kind of go by the wayside, and everybody was using epoxies for a while. Now they're all seem to be coming back to the cementitious resurfacing products. I don't know if it's because the epoxies have gotten so expensive or if it's because these are just easy to use. And the cool thing about recap is if you mess it up, just go over it again. You don't have to worry about it. Wait at least 24 hours or no longer than 24 hours, put another lift on it. I did that on my driveway. My son's Nova was kind enough to empty its transmission contents onto the driveway, and it was a brand new driveway. So I got all of the oil up that I could, and I did actually use the recap on it, did 2 coats, and there it is. It turned out fantastic. And I did it. And like I said, I'm not a finisher. I'm not a professional, and I did it. The first coat was terrible. I left some corners light. I came back over with a second coat it was about an hour and a half later, and it turned out fantastic. So they're really easy to use. Whereas with the epoxies, you either have to be a certified installer or you have to spend a whole bunch of money. So.
And did you get your son to help you on that one?
Absolutely.
Was he mixing?
Yeah, he was actually he was my on his knees guy doing the joints and stuff, because I'm like, hey, I'm way too big and old to be down on my knees doing this stuff. I'll do all the mixing and the application. You're hitting cleanup, son.
Yeah, well, he earned it, right?
Yeah, he did. He did a good job. I was impressed. I let him brush in the joints. He did a great job.
Okay, any other questions out there, you guys? Couple final questions for Dave. You've been great, Dave, as always, just like the old days, man.
Sure miss hanging with you guys, man.
Yeah, well, maybe next year we'll be doing this in person. Maybe we'll do another contractor expo. Robert,
Yeah.
You got any final questions for him?
One last question, Dave. Do you guys, we're getting a lot of requests from our customers for lead documentation support, and I was just wondering if Quikrete has some support material that we could provide our customers when we're asked for lead documents.
Oh, absolutely. All you have to do is contact me, or in our office, Terry Beeman's the one who does our leads letters. We just need to know the job name, the contractor, the sub doing the work, and the location, and we can get leads letters to specified for that job to make sure they get their leads points. And as well, if they need any type of certifications, we can also cert materials specifically to jobs. All you have to do is call or email me or Terry Beeman at our office. And if it's easier for you, the rule, just go to Dave. I'll take care of it.
So Dave, if you'd move up to your last slide where we got your contact info again.
Sure.
And last chance out there, guys. Anybody have a question, a brilliant, insightful question for the young Dave Ford? And if not, Ernie, if you're still on, Ernie, I'll give it to you and you can do your wrap up.
All right. Well, to wrap it up, thank you to everybody who joined in on today's virtual PK seminar. I do appreciate your participation. I just want to personally thank Dave for everything he did today. Really, really a lot information, but very helpful, Dave. I know we always rely on you. But again, thank you, Dave. Moreover, just want to remind everybody that there will be a survey sent out to you by email. So if you take a moment and you fill it out, we do appreciate any feedback so we can improve for any future seminars. But in the end, that concludes today's product knowledge seminar on Quikrete. Be safe, everybody. Rock on, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you. Contact me with any questions. Thank you.